Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now today we're taking a look at FTM. I hope I got that correct, and this is essentially a request from one of my community members. Thank you very much, T, for requesting I cover this. I got you, and I appreciate everything you do for the community. Moving forward, I would like to also recommend that you always do your own research. This is for educational purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor, but I have been in the industry for a very long time, and I love trading and I love crypto, and really just analyzing charts is my thing. So I appreciate you taking the time to watch this. If you're new to the channel, feel free to like and subscribe. Also note that I have a signal group, of course, down below in the description if you'd like to reference that, because I send out 3 to 5 signals per week, kind of giving you good, insights on entry points, perhaps best practice there, just so you can kind of, do your thing, still, invest, but without spending all the time that I spend looking at these charts, because it can get kind of annoying if you're not me, right? I hear that a lot. But either way, thanks again. We'll go ahead and take a look. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at FTM. And before we do, if you are new to the channel, thank you again for joining me here today. But more importantly, we look at Bitcoin and Ethereum first to get a baseline on the market so we know what's going on, big picture, so you can make an informed decision, right? Because the more information, the better, so you know what you're getting into. And I think looking at these other coins is an important thing to do, because if you don't do it, you're kind of short selling yourself on the big picture, right? So enough about that. Let's go ahead and get into it. Looking at the 4-hour chart, first of all, to note again, just for my newcomers, TradingView is a desktop application that I utilize. And of course, I've got plenty of indicators available, but the ones that I primarily use on the 4-hour chart, which we're going to look at briefly here, is the 200, the purple line there. That's a 200 SMA, and the yellow line, orange, whatever you call it, is essentially the 50-day moving average. I probably need to rename that color or just change the color so I don't have to keep thinking it's orange when it's yellow and it's orange. I don't know. Let's just say orange. Either way, needless to say, let's take a look here. So first of all, with Bitcoin, the 4-hour chart, what we're looking at is some major support and resistance levels. So if you're new, we have a major support at 30,000, major resistance at 42. There's a secondary support at 31,000, secondary resistance at 41,000 as well. So we've got kind of this channel that's been working into for about a full month and a half. This is the most boring and ridiculous that Bitcoin has ever been. It's funny because I saw a picture the other day of a bull and a bear, basically a bear with bull horns, and it said, "This is Bitcoin's spirit animal." It just kind of made me laugh because it's so true. Just this constant, crap, for lack of better terms, for the last month and a half. It's really boring, really annoying, because our altcoins don't know what the hell they're going to do. And this is just kind of one of those, I guess, frustrations. I'm not mad at all. You can tell, right? I'm perfectly happy with this. But it's just Bitcoin doing its thing, right? So that's kind of standard now. It's kind of par for the course. We've got a support level and or resistance, currently resistance at 36,500. But the most important thing to note is the 50-day moving average. It's working as a resistance right now. It's getting rejected. It's been rejected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. 20 hours worth of rejection. So, hopefully we can kind of break through there, and then we can try to surpass the 200-day moving average right at about 35,600, and of course the 36,500 resistance. So kind of some annoyances here. We've got a lot of room for improvement for Bitcoin. These are bearish signals that we're seeing right now, because honestly, with some of these candles, if we look, this is a bearish Harami candle. All right. So oftentimes there's a retracement when that happens, just because the candlestick is shorter. I mean, it can sometimes be referred to as a gravestone if this comes down and closes near the bottom. It just kind of shows there's a pattern reversal, and we might see it swing downward here soon. So that's kind of my guess. We'll see what happens, but enough about speculation. That's the state of the union for Bitcoin right now. Looking at Ethereum, we're looking at here's a major support and resistances. We've got a support of 1,700, which has been tested almost 3 times. Yeah, 3 times. So it's pretty strong support currently, but if it keeps getting tested, we'll see what happens. Bitcoin breaks below 30,000. We will see that get tested a 3rd time and likely break below if it stays below. That is Bitcoin under 30, which some people say is going to happen. I'd really love to see if it doesn't happen, just so we can get some recovery in our altcoins before the season's over. But that being said, we're right in between the 50 and the 200-day moving average. Okay. So kind of standard stuff here for Ethereum. It did do really well here recently when Bitcoin went kind of sideways. So it'd be nice to see that happen again, because Ethereum is usually the go-to coin when Bitcoin does poorly, right? Bitcoin dumps, Ethereum pumps. That's kind of essentially how it's been. And if you want proof of that, this is when Bitcoin was going sideways right here. This, what was the percent there in that time frame? Yeah, that 86% increase in a matter of 2 or 3 weeks. That's when Bitcoin was going sideways. So that's what Ethereum is capable of and should do. Will it come back to 4,400 again? I don't believe so. I think we're going to surpass 2,900 soon if Bitcoin can go sideways a little further and maybe come up and test 42,000. All right, so that's kind of the hope and the thought process there. So let's move on to FTM, and that stands for Fantom. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't know a darn thing about this. Perhaps you can leave comments below and let us know what this coin is all about. But I can tell you right now, the one-day chart does not bode well with this apparent death cross creeping on down. Again, I don't put a lot of weight in the death cross and the golden cross. I don't think that they're super pivotal. If people hype them up, then I don't really think they know a lot, because historically, Bitcoin, for example, has done very well on death crosses. Recently was an exception, of course, but that's because the indecision of the market. Nobody knows what to do, so they're going to follow those indicators that are kind of ridiculous. I wouldn't worry too much about this. Yes, it may impact it monetarily, but not in the big picture. Looking at the big picture here, we've got the MACD. Slight convergence, but really nothing to note here. Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about the MACD right now. RSI is really low. As you can see, the RSI is kind of working as a resistance. The right around 45 on the RSI is kind of a normal natural resistance line. So you can kind of see that right here. I don't put a lot of weight on that, but you can kind of just see that it's working itself into this little channel. So if we can break above 50 on the RSI, then likely the price will do so as well. Obviously, yes, they work together, but when the RSI is at that state of indecision right in the center, it is oftentimes working as a resistance. So let's go ahead and take a look at smaller time frames. But before we do, I always like to identify average true range. And average true range is usually something you can get as a calculation. I personally just have been in the industry long enough, I like to eyeball it, because you can kind of tell what's going on, right? So I mean, the price has been in this channel of somewhere between 27 cents upwards of 50 cents for the most part. Yes, we had some outliers up here, but that was probably just that knee-jerk reaction to Bitcoin recovering on the 25th, which we see right here. So that being said, I don't put a lot of weight into this price being this high. That was kind of an anomaly, which we see on a lot of coins right now. But as you can see, though, it was dramatically impacted by the China candle. So my gosh, I would have hate to have held on to FTM and received a 62% decrease in one day. That'd be pretty rough. So I'm sorry to whomever might have experienced that. I can see why you're probably watching this video in the first place. Give me some light at the end of the tunnel, right? Well, we'll see. I can't offer that to you yet because I don't know all the data. But generally speaking, it is absolutely impacted by Bitcoin. But I think that this increase here is worth noting because it obviously did very well in that time frame when not a lot of coins went that high that fast. Matic did, actually, coincidentally, and that has a really good fundamentals. I don't know the fundamentals here. Perhaps there's a reason for that. Perhaps the catalyst is the fact that they have good fundamentals. But if they had good fundamentals, and why is it doing so poorly right now? Well, just because Bitcoin is being an asshole. Sorry, I had to say it. All right, so let's move on to the 4-hour chart. So let's go ahead and see. Now, first thing to look at the 4-hour chart, because it carries the most weight, is the moving averages. We can see here, the 200-day moving average kept the price down here between the 18th and the 20th. So this 4-day time frame got rejected. So it's still working as a major resistance level. Let's see. Yeah, it crossed upwards here. And this is that death cross that people refer to as when the 50 comes down to the 200. It did actually drive the price down, but that was already driven down from the China candle. So there's really not a lot of weight there. But generally speaking, we got a resistance here. Right now, the 50-day moving average is kind of working as a support and a resistance. I really don't know what it's doing. It's kind of trying to figure itself out. Oftentimes when it does that, there's eventually a breakout, but it does look like the last 8 hours have been rejection city. So FTM's asking, do you want to go on a date? And she, being the 50-day moving average, says, heck no. Get out of here. We don't want you around here. So the 50, well, we got 50 at the RSI, normal, standard for right now. It's not oversold completely, so I mean that does kind of tell us there's potential for an increase. The moving average convergence divergence isn't really telling us a darn thing either. So really not a lot to disseminate here except for the fact that the 50 is kind of at a state of indecision, but currently kind of working as a resistance level. And of course, the same with the 200. So Will it break above soon? I think inevitably, yes, it will. If Bitcoin can go sideways a little bit longer and increase, just say Bitcoin comes upwards of 40,000, then yeah, we're going to see another knee-jerk reaction. Just like we saw back here from FTM when the price was down too low from the 17th and the 22nd of April, and it pushed back up after the retrace. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at for the 4 hour. Let's take a look at the Ichimoku cloud. And if you're new to the channel, Ichimoku cloud is a really good cloud. Well, it's the only cloud really, and it's a really good indicator to tell us if we have a short position or a long position. In other words, which one should we take? So take a look here. Let's turn off the volume because it's kind of noisy. I just want to show you here. So the Ichimoku cloud is awesome, right? So when the price is above the cloud, so this is a cloud in the background, it's kind of like a lagging span, they refer to it as. When it's right here, in other words, as soon as it breaks above and stays above for a couple of candles, just say in this case 2 hours, then it's going to be considered bullish. So as you can see, kind of came right up. If you look over here, price comes down below, it's considered bearish. So you don't want to take entry here if you're in a long position or considering one. Obviously, if you're trying to short, that would be a good consideration. Wouldn't have been a large benefit, but still, that's the general concept. Okay, you can see the same thing follow suit here, right? As soon as it breaks the cloud, comes down, stays below. So it's pretty consistent in that sense. We've got a lot of indications as to how it's working. So that's a really good indicator to tell us kind of what's going on. So if you're going to use a 1 hour chart for anything, this is the only thing I use it for personally, use it for the Ichimoku cloud because that's the most effective time frame. Don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. 15-minute chart, no, it's too busy. 4 hour chart, it's too slow. 1 hour is just right. Well, there's a story, right? The three bears. I don't know. It's somewhere in there. You've probably heard of it. It's an old nursery rhyme. Man, I got some ADD today. I apologize. I'm trying to stay focused, but it's been a long day, so thank you for your patience. Let's go ahead and move on to the 15-minute chart. So let's get rid of the Ichimoku cloud. I'm going to leave this here just so we can kind of see where the entry points were for the cloud. Because I think it's important to note sometimes. And let's look at let's turn on my EMA view app notification. So if you're new to the channel, EMA is this red line, basically an exponential moving average. It kind of works as a continuing momentous indicator. Because the MACD, for example, is EMA 12 versus the EMA 26. They're constantly converging and diverging. This one doesn't need to converge and diverge. It just simply stays in the price action and tells us if the bears are in control or the bulls are in control. So we see right here, bulls are in control primarily right here. So you see how it's solid, it's testing, it keeps bouncing off and keeps going up. That's a very good sign. This is a state of consolidation, can be difficult to identify. And if you look back here, big surprise. Remember we marked this on the Ichimoku cloud. This is the bearish sentiment. You see how the bears are in complete control here. It keeps rejecting off of the EMA line, driving the price down. So there's things to kind of pay attention to. So right now we're in a state of, for lack of better terms, indecision, keep getting rejected in the 50-day moving average on the 4 hour chart. So that being said, right now, it would not be an ideal time to invest. Yes, it would in the sense of a swing trade, right? Because the big picture, this has a lot better. I think its average true range is what was it? 0.27 upwards of 0.5, if I remember correctly. I might have to look at that again, but its average true range is much higher than where it's at right now, right? So getting in at 22 cents wouldn't be a terrible idea. Just note that the price could come down further before it comes back up again. Okay, so if you're going to do a short-term swing trade or a day trade, not ideal. And the reason why is because the price is under this red line, the EMA line, as well as the VWAP. So if you're new to the channel, VWAP is this blue line here. It's the volume weighted average price. It pretty much expresses the volume of the last 24 hours as a price. It resets every 12 hours, correction, every 24 hours, which is what we see here. You see this dip just came out of nowhere. It's kind of resetting itself and giving it a new average. And it's pretty standard, and they had that built in because older, well, not older, but more traditional stock trading is, it resets every single day, and you have pre-market and post-market hours. There is no post and pre-market in this. It's just continuous, so that has to reset every once in a while. So we're usually at 5 p.m. Pacific. That's how I notice it. It'll probably be different for your time zone, but it resets every time. Now there is an MVWAP you can use. It's a moving volume weighted average price, which is probably more ideal here, but this still gets the point across. And point I'm trying to make is that when the price is under VWAP, it's considered resistance. When it's over VWAP, it's considered a support. So right now we're under support, which essentially is making it a resistance, right? We're under resistance and we're under the EMA line. So this is not a good entry point. I would say ixnay on the entry point tay. I don't know. Just don't do it right now. Again, if you're swing trading and you're planning to hold on to this for a few months, cool. Have at it. It's really not a bad entry. But again, depending on your trading style, I would recommend waiting for a better entry. But again, how much lower can it go, right? The absolute lowest it experienced recently this year on June 22nd was 18 cents, and 22 cents is not that far off. Yes, that's probably a decent percent when you consider that, because it's just a lot more movement. Technically, it's 20%. That is still a lot. But should it go much lower? No, probably not. Will it go much lower? Yes, it possibly can if Bitcoin decides to be a jerk and come back down to 30,000 or lower. If it tests 30,000 and drops, then we're all screwed, and so is FTM, right? Because we saw the history. It continues to decrease when Bitcoin decreases, and it violently responds when Bitcoin does well. So if Bitcoin comes up to 42,000 and breaks, FTM to the moon, as some people would say. I prefer not to say that, but that would essentially happen, or can happen. Okay. So again, all things you want to consider, but I guess what I'm getting at here is that be cautious, be safe. I like to say be cautiously optimistic, because in this case here, if you're careful and you choose a good entry point, you'll be safe. But if you just jump in willy-nilly, you might get burned. Again, what's your big picture? What's your goal? If you're swing trading, great entry. If you are day trading, terrible. Wait for it to recover and bounce off the EMA and VWAP line and give us 30 minutes of confirmation above those two. In other words, two 15-minute candlesticks closing above EMA and VWAP, and then you might want to consider your entry point, as long as the RSI isn't overextended, which it is not at this point. All right. So hopefully you found that beneficial. Thank you again, T, for recommending that I cover this here today. Really appreciate you. And we'll just go ahead and see you all in the next video. Hope you have a good rest of your day. Take care. Thank you.